Hi guys, just to let you know, I've been given consent this morning to tell you something that I've had to keep very, very quiet because I signed an NDA about this, and I can confirm 100% that the blockchain technology was used for the voting on this election alongside the conventional voting system, and Donald Trump won by a complete landslide. I mean, the figures are off the scale. He has all of the hard evidence. This was a sting operation rather than a vote. But I can now tell you that the QFS, the quantum financial system, was actually used. The quantum voting system was actually used for this election. So we actually know the true result, and we know the ones that the Democrats tried to twist. So for those people that doubted it, we now have hard evidence. And over the next few days, there will be a number of arrests and a number of indictments and a lot of things that are happening. But I can tell you 100% that the QFS, quantum financial system, was actually used for this election alongside the old system. So brilliant news, and Donald Trump won by a landslide.
And this just in, the 26-year-old Postal Service mail carrier has been arrested accused of dumping mail, which included election ballots, into a dumpster. Investigators say that Nicholas Beauchesne of Kearney, New Jersey, threw out more than 1,800 pieces of mail, which included 99 general election ballots intended to be delivered to residents along his routes in Orange and West Orange. The Postal Service says that mail has since been delivered. Beauchesne will be arraigned this afternoon and faces 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine if convicted. Happening today.
Tonight, 2 local mail carriers are facing federal charges accused of failing to deliver mail and instead tossing it in the trash. Prosecutors say they found at least 1 mail-in ballot application among the discarded items and dozens of political mailings. Good evening, I'm Ken Rice. One of the mail carriers was caught on camera tossing mail in the trash. The other's charged with putting mail out with the trash for his neighborhood's weekly pickup. Andy Sheehan's been following the story all week and has this update tonight.
The U.S. Attorney's Office says incriminating evidence, both this video surveillance and mountains of garbage bags left on the curb, pointed to 2 postal carriers suspected of trashing the mail. Now both men face federal charges of destruction or delay of the mail by a postal employee, a felony which could land each in prison for 5 years.
I don't know what's going on over there, but whatever it is, if that's what happened, that's a shame.
We first told you how special agents from the Postal Service Office of Inspector General descended on this house in Baldwin. It's owned by 48-year-old mail carrier Sean Troche, where they found 9 garbage bags filled with undelivered mail. According to the criminal complaint, quote, although Troche initially reported that only one of the single bags contained the mail, he ultimately acknowledged that all of the trash bags did and told investigators to take them. Troche told investigators that the mail had been intended for delivery on his route and acknowledged it was wrong to throw mail in the trash.
Started finding mail in the recycle bin, and then the last couple drops we found in the trash can.
In a second and separate case, a surveillance camera caught 29-year-old carrier James McLanigan apparently dumping mail in the trash outside PERSED LGBTQ+ health services in Lawrenceville. PERSED operations coordinator Tony Kuhar recovered all of that mail, and now the feds say all of this mail and the mail recovered in Baldwin has now been delivered.
Just didn't want to finish the route, it seems, because it was all addresses within a few blocks of here.
Although there was only 1 ballot application found in the trash, U.S. Attorney Scott Brady says during this election, trust in the Postal Service is more important than ever, and that employees who violate that trust can expect, quote, quick, effective action against them. Reporting at the Northside Sorting Facility, Andy Sheehan, KDKA News.
The Dallas County District Attorney's Office has opened a criminal voter fraud investigation after getting an unprecedented number of complaints from voters. Voters complain they got mail-in ballots even though they had not requested them. Fox 4's Lori Brown joins us with more on how the possible scheme may have worked. Lori.
Clarice, according to the court document just unsealed today, prosecutors believe someone using a fake name and fake address may have fraudulently requested more than 700 mail-in ballots, leaving some voters at the polls frustrated and confused.
This all started when prosecutor Andy Chatham got a phone call. A man said his wife got a mail-in ballot she had not requested.
He said, now, it's my understanding if I get this, she's not allowed to vote.
Technically, that is true, so Andy Chatham took the complaint seriously.
And then soon thereafter, the complaints started trickling in.
Chatham started working with elections administrator Tony Pippin's pool to prepare for Election Day. Anyone with a record of having already requested a mail-in ballot who showed up to vote was given a provisional ballot, and they could disavow their mail-in ballot. Today, a judge issued an order that allows the DA's office to examine those disavowed ballots.
All of the mail-in ballots, if there's anything that arises that's fraudulent, we're going to find it.
The DA's office will be able to examine the 700 mail-in ballots requested by someone believed to be using a fake name and address.
It's just a bubble that you fill in. So, but believe it or not, people, if fill in bubbles, some people may just put a big X in the bubble. People may just draw diagonal lines. People may do circles in blue pen. People may do circles in black pen the other way. All of those things will be able to be examined to see if there is a pattern and to see if it is done by the same person.
Here's how prosecutors say the scheme may have worked. Someone may have requested mail-in ballots for people who did not ask for them. Then after the ballots hit the mailboxes, someone may have gone door to door to encourage those voters to cast their ballots for a particular candidate. Chatham says the DA's office has never seen possible voter fraud to this scale before.
Not only the people complaining, but the number of mail-in ballots that are at least suspicious in nature. Yes, it's unprecedented.
40 people disavowed mail-in ballots cast in their name on Election Day. Those ballots will not count. The DA's investigation is countywide. It is up to each municipality how they will certify their election results while this investigation continues. Clarice.
I want to tell you about an investigation that's underway into alleged voter fraud in DuPage County, with several suspected cases having been caught by the county clerk's office.
WGN's Brona Tumulty is joining us now with more details. Brona.
That's right. 9 cases in total are or have been under investigation, and those involved applications being sent in for mail-in ballots, except the people requesting them had already passed away.
The clerk's office looks at all of these applications. They were the ones who discovered that there was a problem and immediately turned them over to my office for investigation.
DuPage County prosecutors are actively looking into 3 possible cases of voter fraud, with an additional 6 having already been investigated.
We determined that we didn't have sufficient evidence to bring criminal charges.
All 9 cases were discovered last month.
Were detected between the period of September 1st and September 26th.
And in each of them, State's Attorney Bob Berlin says the county clerk's office received a request for a mail-in ballot from a resident who's no longer alive.
It was determined they were deceased before the application was sent in the U.S. mail. And the clerk looks at the name that's on the application for the vote by mail ballot, and they check it against the voter rolls. And they have all the databases, so they were able to make that determination.
We're told a lot of mail-in ballots were requested this year. In fact, more than 206,000 of them have been distributed county-wide.
We're seeing a huge increase in vote-by-mail applications and ballots.
So, while 9 suspect cases may not seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things, the consequences could be serious for whomever is involved.
If somebody signs somebody else's name to an application, that would be a forgery. It's a Class 3 felony, punishable by 2 to 5 years in the Illinois Department of Corrections.
And Berlin wants the public to know the integrity of the election is of the utmost importance.
Whether you vote by mail, whether you vote early, or whether you vote on Election Day, the process is fair. We have built-in integrity into our election process, and every vote is going to count.
Now, there's no time frame on when the investigation of the 3 current cases might be wrapped up. And of the more than 206,000 mail-in ballots requested, over 107,000 have already been returned. And since early voting opened on Monday of this week, we're told almost 65,000 people have cast their vote early. So overall, more than a quarter of registered voters in DuPage County have already decided who they want to see in the White House next year. Live in the newsroom, Werneth, WGN News.
The man I spoke with today has a reason for taking out the trash. It's his job. But he also believes you should be sending your ballots in or taking them in person, which is the exact opposite thing that elections officials want you to do. They'd like you to drop them off or put them in the mail.
It has nothing to do with political. I want a fair election.
Charles West didn't feel like things were fair when he says he found Utah voter ballots in a dumpster Thursday morning.
I dumped a can today, and I'm finding ballots in the garbage can. Pardon my French, just mad.
Charles has been working in waste collection for 5 years. The ballots he found in Sandy were a first.
No joke, look. That's what I was able to find that fell out of the garbage can. It was an 8-yard can. I don't know if you guys understand what that is. That's a pretty big can.
There are plenty of reasons why the ballots could have been found that way, from theories of them being stolen from mailboxes and dumped to being spoiled addresses that were incorrectly put into circulation. Either way, it is a little odd to find ballots spewing out of a dumpster.
I think it's very important that we have a secure vote and people's information isn't compromised. I mean, this opens these people up to fraud. It opens up to everything. I'd be terrified if my name was on that ballot.
The state of Utah is no stranger to mail-in voting, which has been in the works for nearly a decade. So if your ballot gets in the wrong hands, there's a way to know.
We verify against the signature to make sure no one's voting that shouldn't vote. So there are some hiccups sometimes, and we'd like to hear those reported so we can fix those and work with the county clerk.
With the ongoing pandemic, county clerks across the state are stressing the importance of not showing up at a polling station to vote this year.
They can put it through the mail. They can also put it directly in a drop box that gets to the county clerk. Now, if someone really wants to go to a polling location and drop off their ballot, that's also fine. They can do that, but we don't want people congregating, especially with these spikes we have in COVID, at polling locations. We don't want that to be a super spreader kind of event.
Charles developed a recent interest in politics and has a defined political affiliation, but he says this isn't about one side of the aisle versus the other. He just wants everyone's vote to be counted.
I'm just a patriot. I'm American. I'm all about America, and I just want a fair election.
We reached out to those with their names on those ballots that were found in the dumpster. We didn't hear back from them. We also reached out to the U.S. Postal Service. You'll hear their reply coming up tonight on Fox 13 News Live at 5. Now, if you're one of those people waiting by the mailbox, anxiously waiting to get your ballot, if you haven't gotten it in a few more days, that's the best time to reach out to your individual county clerk's office. We're live in Salt Lake City tonight. Brian Schnee, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Meanwhile, the state election board is asking Georgia's attorney general to look into 98 outstanding cases of voter fraud. Some date far as back as 2014. Others involved the 2016 presidential election. The Secretary of State's office says the claim includes that people knowingly casting a second ballot or submitting absentee ballots on behalf of adult children who are felons. These are in addition to double voting incidents mentioned by Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger earlier this week. He says about 150,000 people who requested absentee ballots for this year's primary or runoff elections later decided to vote in person. Out of that number, about 1,000 people voted both ways. The report now is spread across 100 Georgia counties. Secretary of State Raffensperger emphasized anyone found guilty of gaming the system will be prosecuted. But he said the cases of alleged double voting did not change any race results.
But Dr. Steve Pachenik, as we're in the middle of this, the election's over. We're now in the stealing process of the election. What are you seeing? What's going through your mind as you're witnessing this gigantic hoax?
Let me just say again what I said in 2016. There are honorable members of our intelligence, military, and civilian community in the government who understood exactly how corrupt Biden and the Democratic machinery is was and will be. This is really a sting operation. Contrary to what everybody else said, Trump knew this was happening. Eric knew this was happening and warned the public. I knew this was happening. However, I could not say anything about it. What happened was we watermarked every ballot with what's called the QFS blockchain encryption code. In other words, we know pretty well where every ballot is, where it went, and who has it. So this is not a stolen election. On the contrary, we reversed the entire game of war along the lines of Sun Tzu, the art of war. And Trump was brilliant and still is brilliant at it. The reason he hasn't been seen, and Alex correctly said, oh, I haven't seen him in several days. Well, in the art of the war, you pull back, allow your enemy to make all the mistakes that they are making, manipulate the situation, expose them, and then come in for the final killing. And that's what's happening now. None of this was unexpected. All of this was expected. All of this is part of the sting operation we're running. And let me tell you that 48 hours ago, not only did we put markers on those ballots, but I can say now, with the permission of people in the intelligence community and elsewhere, that we have sent out thousands and thousands of National Guards to 12 different states, Washington, Delaware, Texas, Arizona, Alabama, and everywhere. So now you have to consider and rethink what this is really about. The genius of Trump is that he is able to pull back at any point and manipulate the opponent without the opponent ever realizing. He has said repeatedly, hashtag steal the vote. That's exactly what he has said for months. Then he made a very clear implication. He said, I will use common sense or my intelligence, i.e. both literal and figurative intelligence. And those of us in the intelligence community, be it who they are, again, what I said in 2016, when we exposed Hillary Clinton, we now exposed, and it was Trump who initiated this, Biden family. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Jill Biden, Jim Biden, Frank, the whole family was played right into a game where they were convicted, and you're seeing what's happening now. What was not announced was that we watermarked all the ballots with what I said, QFS blockchain, which is a very hard encryption code to break. And the second thing is we sent, probably 20,000 or more our National Guards 48 hours ago. None of it was reported, and I thank the press for not reporting it and others. So what in fact is happening is you're seeing a sophisticated sting operation that was initiated by Trump. I'm just a lowly peasant in this game, and honestly, I was informed that I could say something about it today, only last night. That's why I could not come on.
Well,
This is the reverse of what you guys have been thinking. It's not a civil war. We have not been surprised in any way. This has been set up by Trump for a long, long time. In the same way that we knew about Hillary Clinton, I warned about the coup that we would do a counter coup, and this is our counter coup again against the Bidens. And that's exactly what we expected. The corruption in the mail, the corruption of USPS, corruption with the Democrats, everywhere and anywhere. There was no surprise here. And that's why we deployed National Guard soldiers to 12 different states. Nothing was said about it.
Steve, you've just broken certainly perhaps the biggest news since the election here on this show. Are arrests inevitably coming down the road?
Yeah. They're coming not just down the road, they're being implemented. What you saw Corey Wendowski and Pam Biondi saying when they were in Clay County and as well in Philadelphia, that was not just a threat. That was exactly what's going to happen. People will be arrested as of tonight, tomorrow, and it will go on for quite a while. And this was a total sting operation that I can say.
So explain
anybody else. I have the permission to say it. I do not deal with classified information. As you know, I do not work for our government, but because I'm loyal to the Republic and I work with a lot of people who are loyal to this republic, including the 16 intelligence services, the Secret Service, our civilian service. They've all been great, and they've kept it quiet. And I've been given the permission to say what I just said. I have nothing more to say, but this is not a surprise here. This is the biggest sting operation probably in our country that we've ever had.
So how is this watermark on the ballots? What is the significance of that as to, is it going to stop from fake ballots being counted, or how is that going to be used?
Well, we use it in any way that we need to use it in terms of counting, knowing which ones were fake, which ones were not. It's a very sophisticated code. So if you just throw them away, these are cyber communication implementations that we have the code for. We know exactly what was thrown away. We know exactly what was placed. We know exactly who has it, and we know exactly where it went. I can't go any further than that.
General McInerney, thank you for joining us on War and Pandemic. You've got some breaking news we got to talk about. It's one of the reasons we have Sidney Powell over here today. Something very disturbing. There's been a site called the American Report. It's got a woman named Mary Fanning's done some incredible reporting, particularly about a guy named Dennis Montgomery. What is it, this thing that's going around about this project or this system called Hammer? Explain to our audience what this is and why it should be of such concern to people in this current situation that we're in.
Yes, I will, Steve. The fact is that Hammer is what we call a SIGINT, a signals intelligence program that the NSA came up with years ago. The CIA picked it up under the Obama administration, and I broke it in March of 2017 about what they were doing on the Russian hoax. But the fact is, the Obama administration took this system and they put in an application in this SIGINT program called Scorecard. And Scorecard changes votes at a certain point in the voting stream. And if I can, and by the way, the Obama administration used it in the 2012 election in Florida. And so both Obama and Biden are very familiar with this. Now, I've got to make a quote here.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's important that we all understand it. It's by Joseph Stalin. I consider it completely unimportant who in the party will vote or how. But what is extraordinarily important is this: who will count the votes? Now, Steve, we have a desperate Democratic Party that will do anything to bring the country to a totalitarian state and as far left as they want. They used it in the primaries, and Bernie lost to Biden because they used it in the primaries. So it is ready to go. I just found out about this yesterday. Sydney has played a very important role in assisting me and Mary Fanning and Alan Jones in trying to get the word out so the American people know all this enthusiasm you're talking about in Pennsylvania gets changed very quickly with this software program that switches 3% of the votes. That's
Okay. Hang on for a second. Hang on for a second. General McInerney, I want you to give just quickly your bona fides. Talk just briefly. Give me a minute for the audience on your career.
Okay, 35 years in the Air Force. I ended up the number 3 man in the Air Force in the headquarters. I had 4 tours in Vietnam. I commanded the raid on Tripoli in 1986. We attacked Tripoli from my headquarters in England. I was then the Vice Commander-in-Chief of U.S. Air Forces Europe, and then the Commander of Alaskan Command and Alaska NORAD region. So I had a very extensive operational career, and I'm in the cloud business now, and that's why I'm so intimately familiar with what Hammer and Scorecard can do, and nobody knows it. Nobody knows.
Okay, now also, you're one of the most revered officers in the U.S. Air Force, an unbelievable career. I want to go to Hammer. Hammer was the single most important and the single most sophisticated, basically, system that came up after 9/11 for really intelligence or counterintelligence about radical Islamic Jihad and the ability to monitor that. Is that how the beginning of this started? Was a foreign surveillance system that allowed the national security and intelligence apparatus to watch our enemies. Is that how this thing started?
That's how it started, Steve. Very sophisticated, very, very capable. And the fact is,
Hammer at one.
It was then adopted with the software packages like on your iPhone to the voting business. And it was to be used, and it was used in foreign countries. And so it was then moved over into the CIA, and they started looking at U.S. citizens. That is illegal. The CIA cannot look at U.S. citizens, and only the FBI with the proper FISA warrants, etc. Sydney knows all about this. You know all about this. And it is extremely important that this was taken out of the CIA when the Obama administration left. They used some kabuki to get it out. They still have it up and running. We know where it is located. We know it's active tonight. It's active. They've been looking at a whole host of things, as has the DNC, using false IPs. And they are looking around, and they are trying to set up this voting thing that happens on Tuesday night. It's going to look good for President Trump, but they're going to change it. And that's the danger that America and everybody must realize.
I just want to mention, we got about 2 minutes here. In the next segment, Sydney and I are going to drill down on this a little bit more, and we're going to talk about some polling other things, but hopefully get you back before the end. Dennis Montgomery. The last time the audience heard about Dennis Montgomery, he was being rounded up at his house. He had 47 hard drives, I think he had taken from from Fort Meade. How does Dennis Montgomery fit into this story?
He's a genius, and he loves America. Dennis invented him. Dennis invented Scorecard. He's the programmer that made all this happen, and he's on our side. And at great personal risk, as well as he hasn't benefited financially from it. He is an absolute genius. And so he's extremely important to what's going on. It would have happened in 2016, Steve, except something happened to it that night when the Obama crowd and the Democrats tried to use it. I can't talk about that.
Dennis Montgomery is like the character Nash in Beautiful Mind. I mean, this is one of the smartest programmers ever. He wrote this incredibly sophisticated program. And that's why this event in August of 2015, when he was basically gathered up, and it had the 47 hard drives. Heck, we got one hard drive from Hunter, and we're still going through information. He did this, as we now know, he did this to essentially save his country and expose what's going on. What was he trying to expose, and what should the American people know today on the eve of this election that 250 flag officers sent a letter to President Trump, says the most important, including my old boss, Tom Hayward, who said it's the most important election in the history of the republic. What is Montgomery trying to tell us? What is the message we need to hear today?
Well, he's telling us right now, Steve, that we are on the verge of being compromised through cyber warfare, of which he is a master of, the most brilliant person in our country on cyber warfare. And they have used this. They moved it from the intelligence, a very highly secure program, and they've moved it from there over to political treachery. And that's what it is. When they moved it out of the CIA, they moved it for their political use, as they have politicized the intelligence community, as we saw in the Russian hoax, and what they've done to General Flynn. All these things are on this force that you and Sydney have been talking about, that want to change America from what it is. It goes back to the Electoral College, to the Supreme Court. All these things are bundled to change America from being a democratic republic to a totalitarian regime. That means a socialist country, which the next step is communism. And that's why there can be no agreement between this Democratic Party and the Republican Party. One choice is freedom, one choice is communism. It's that simple.
You going to be able to stop Hammer and Scorecard?
We intend to stop Hammer and Scorecard.
Sidney Powell says it. Take that to the bank, okay? Future FBI Director, Sidney Powell. Can't wait for the confirmation hearings.
Hey, I'd like to say what Leslie Anderson said: have faith, pray, and let's all meet at the pass tomorrow night.
What is it, stick to the plan or whatever it is? Let's blow some heads up right now, okay.